Hey kids, it's your dad here with another quick debrief of my latest backpacking adventures on the Pacific Crest Trail.
Yeah!
So the last time we spoke, I was getting ready to go on a 15-mile walk to a water cache, and that's what I did. I got there about 5 or 5:30 in the evening, and there's a side trail that's about a tenth of a mile or so off of the Pacific Crest Trail that goes down to a road where some volunteers will bring pallets of bottled water for hikers to stock up, because it's a pretty long stretch between Julian and the next natural water source. So things have dried out quite a bit, and I ended up meeting a couple of those people who do that work, and had a chance to thank them for that. The next day, on the 3rd of April, I walked about 10 miles to a place called Montezuma Valley, got a ride to a place called the Montezuma Valley Market, which is owned by a guy named Mike. You just call them and they come and get you from the trailhead and take you to the market. And they have all kinds of things to purchase that hikers need, like food and Luco tape. And they also have places to stay. They have little cabins. And so I rented a room and stayed there for 2 nights. And then the room itself is just a room, a bed and a nightstand. There's no toilet or shower, but there's a community building where you can kind of hang out. There's a TV and there's a shower and there's toilets and a little kitchen, and people hang out there. I got to meet a lot of people. There's a really nice group of about 12 or 13 people who were there the first night, and we got to take a ride out to Borrego Springs, I think it's what it's called, for Mexican food, and got to know a lot of them. There's a guy from Italy, there's a guy from Minnesota, somebody from Washington State, somebody from the Bay Area, this lady from Germany. So there's people from all over the place, and it reminded me a little bit of when I lived at the co-op when I was in college, and you just had a room, and then there were a community space for where people gathered, and it was a very sort of diverse group of people then too. So I stayed at Montezuma Valley Market for 2 days because my feet were telling me to take an extra day, and I am listening to my body, which is what they say you're supposed to do. And so on the 5th of April, I walked about 10 miles to a place called Warner Springs, went to the post office there, picked up a package that your grandmother sent me, which included my tent, which is a nice upgrade, as well as this nice little pillowcase that she made for me, so I can stuff my puffy jacket into it and a couple other things, and it makes a really nice pillow. I was using a stuff sack at first, but it was kind of crinkly and it would wake me up in the middle of the night, and it would stick to my face. But this pillowcase that your grandmother made is really nice, and it's got cats on it too, which is even better. After going to the post office, there were 2 people that offered me a ride back to the trail, so it doesn't seem to be much difficulty getting a ride here and there with people. And I got a ride from a guy who calls himself Off Trail, and they took me to a little community center where they have picnic benches, and you can kind of go through your stuff and rest and take your shoes off and get ready for the next stretch. And I walked about 2 or 3 miles to a really nice camp spot, and that was a wonderful walk. It was through these big green pastures with cows in them, and I ended up in a nice open space under really large mature oak trees, and which kept the wind down and kept the dew down. So I woke up dry and well rested. And there I camped with a guy from Australia who goes by the trail name of Leopard. I guess he's a veteran of the Appalachian Trail, and so now he's attempting the Pacific Crest Trail. He's called Leopard because he carries a stuffed animal with him that's a leopard. It's just a thing that he does, so that's his name. Very nice guy. And then that day, that would be the 6th, I walked about 15 miles to a place called Mike's Place, and I don't know who Mike is. And when I got to Mike's Place, Mike wasn't there, so it seemed kind of weird to be staying there. But it's a guy's house, and he's got places where you can pitch your tent, and you can get you can get water and gather there. But since Mike wasn't there, it seemed a little weird to just camp out in his yard. So I left and walked a couple more miles to a place that was near a road, and it was a nice flat spot to pitch my new tent. That was the day that I met a fellow named Sappy. And Sappy is he's a character straight out of a Steinbeck novel. He walks really fast, so he passes me up, but he takes a lot of breaks, so then I pass him up. So we get to see each other quite a bit. And I get the impression he kind of just lives on the trail. He's been walking on the trail for, he says, about, I think, 8 or 10 years, something like that. So he knows it really well, and he's a good source of information. And he's a real free spirit. So I get a lot of enjoyment out of talking to him. And then on the 7th of April, I walked about 19 miles to a camp spot that was really beautiful. It was on a ridge, but it was pretty windy. The tent held up pretty well, though, and I got some pretty good sleep. There I met a fellow from Buffalo, New York, who's a high school chemistry teacher. One more thing I want to mention about that walk to Montezuma Valley Road. There was, windstorm. And when I say windstorm, I mean winds that harder than I've ever experienced, like something like 70 mile an hour sustained winds. I had to carry my hat pretty much the whole way. So today I have about a 5-mile walk down into a place called Paradise Valley Cafe. There should be a box of food ready for me there that I sent, or that your grandmother sent. And there's also, I hear they have burgers and beer, so I'm looking forward to that. Well, that's all that I have for this episode, but as usual, I want to remind you that I love you, and I miss you, and I'm proud of you, and I'll see you soon. And in the meantime, be nice to each other.